Well, we've got some breaking news out of college football where Texas is ranked #1 in the first AP poll of the 2025 season. This is the first time in program history that Texas has been ranked in the top spot of the preseason poll. The Longhorns made it to the college football playoff semifinals last season before losing to Ohio State. Texas will get a rematch with the Buckeyes in week 1 when they travel to Columbus on August the 30th as the Arch Manning era officially gets started. Penn State is next in line at #2, as you see here, with Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia rounding out the top 5. For much more on this, let's go ahead and say hello to a full house. We've got Brad Crawford, we've got Richard Johnson, and we've got Danny Kanell. Guys, great to see you. First one of the season. How about it? Texas #1. Danny, for the first time ever in the preseason poll, your reaction?
Not too surprised, Jordan, based especially on kind of a lot of the offseason polls. We had the coaches poll out last week that had the same Texas in that #1 slot. So not surprised once, at all. This team has been close. They've been knocking on the door. You've got a superstar in the making, potentially an Arch Manning. And it's a roster that Steve Sarkisian has been able to just churn over and plug and play new 4- and 5-star athletes to come in and replace the ones that he loses to the NFL. So not surprised at all. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. My own personal rankings, I like to see a little bit more certainty at the quarterback position, but not surprised at all that Texas is at #1.
Danny, your certainty has the last name Manning. Come on, man. I got Texas at #1 in my own personal poll that we submitted for the CBS 136 a few weeks ago. I see them obviously #1 here in the AP poll. I have no problem with it. Texas is, to me, one of 2 national championship favorites. My only question about those Longhorns is the defensive interior up front. 3rd year in a row, they're chopping and changing with the defensive tackles and the defensive interior. If they can be great up front like they have been the last 2 seasons, then I have no problem with Texas at #1, and I think they will be #1 over the course of the season as well.
Yeah, I think Texas should have got more of the majority first-place votes. I see that there's some split there with Penn State and Ohio State, but Texas is also my preseason #1. I think the Longhorns are going to get through the SEC this season and get the top seed in the playoff. We talk about Arch Manning throughout the summer, but it's the defense for me. Richard mentioned there's some issues maybe on the interior of the D-line, but when you've got Colin Simmons at edge, you've got Anthony Hill linebacker, 2 All-American candidates, Michael Taft leading that secondary. Y'all, that's 3 future first-round picks. Texas defense is going to be elite, and it's going to be one of the best units in college football.
My gosh, Texas grabs the top spot, as we see here, with just 2 more first-place votes than Penn State. But week 1, let's get to it, Richard. We're going to see Texas, who is #1, at #3, Ohio State. Your expectations for that game?
Well, you got to tell me who's playing quarterback for Ohio State first. They got to figure that one out. There's a quarterback battle remaining between Luke Reinholz and Julian Sayin. It doesn't seem like there's much separation there. We will see getting closer to the season if Ohio State shores that up. But I have questions about Ohio State on their defensive front, and I think that's going to be a big problem. Obviously, it's going to be Arch Manning's first start. It's going to be a hostile environment. You would like to be able to get some pressure on Arch to shake him up a little bit. And if Ohio State has defensive line issues and they're not good enough to affect Texas up front, then I think you're going to have a big problem if Arch is able to get comfortable in that game and that offense is really able to figure itself out over the course of that ball game. I have Texas in that game. I'm picking Texas to go on the road and win week 1.
All right, so Texas in that top spot, Brad. #2, as we mentioned, is Penn State. They jump and are 1 spot ahead of Ohio State. I have Penn State going all the way. They are my pick to win in 2025. But how do you feel about this?
I'm okay with Penn State in the #2 spot. This is the best roster on paper Penn State's had in decades. Certainly the best roster James Franklin's had. Convinced several juniors to come back. You see there are 23 first-place votes for the Nittany Lions. They're deserving of that. However, they have not beaten Ohio State in 8 seasons. Might play the Buckeyes twice this year, certainly in the regular season, and then they may face them in Indy in the Big Ten championship game. But Penn State in that #2 spot, I think they are a unanimous top 3 team this season. I've got no issues them there at #2 behind Texas.
So, Brad, this actually is my number one team. This is who I would have there based on what they're returning. You mentioned some of those pieces they're bringing back. Drew Aller obviously has to take a step forward, but as a multi-year starter, I feel like I know what I'm going to get in some respects where you don't know exactly what you're going to get at Ohio State or at Texas, some of these other tops teams. They bring Jim Knowles in from the defending national champion Ohio State defense to really lock up that defense, which has already been pretty good. I know they lose Abdul Carter, but denied Dennis Sutton, Zariah Fisher, couple edge rushers. I think the defense is going to be pretty nasty as well. And then the one big question mark with the running backs coming back, it's been the wide receiver. What do they do there? 3 transfer portal wide receivers coming in to give Drew Aller some targets on the outside. Second year for Aller and Andy Colton-Nicky's offense. I think he finally flourishes. Interesting, though, I do have him losing in the regular season at Ohio State, but getting revenge in the Big Ten championship game. So this would be my number one selection. If I had a vote, I would put Penn State at 1.
That sounds good to me, Danny. I'm right there with you. Guys, as we kind of look at these rankings, and we'll go ahead and show it to you again, Danny, what does it actually say that we have 6 different teams that have received first place votes? Are we looking at yet another season with a lot more parity?
Yeah, Jordan, I love this. I think this is a result of a couple things. One, we lost a lot of players from all the teams and lost a lot of quarterbacks specifically, and there's massive question marks along a lot of these teams. But it's also really since the portal era and NIL, we've seen some of the talent spread out where you don't have that clear-cut team that can just really amass almost the entire roster of 4 and 5 stars. So some of that talent is starting to spread out. So you got question marks at quarterback for a lot of them, a lot more parity across college football in general, which leaves this thing wide open, which I think sets up to be probably the most entertaining season that I can remember covering the sport. It is that wide open, and you can go down the list and make a case for a lot of teams in the top 10 to potentially be national championship rosters based on if their quarterback hits or if he doesn't. So I love the way this is set up, and I think it's wide open.
As you take a look at the first college football preseason AP poll, the SEC leading the way. 4 teams, as you see there, in the top 10, with the Big Ten tallying 3 teams. Richard, what are you expecting to be the best conference in college football this season?
I think at the top, it's, again, going to be the Big Ten. The question is going to be in that middle portion. As we go down in college football, you always think that the SEC's middle is better than the Big Ten's middle. So it depends on how you define best conference. But I look at those Oregon Ducks getting 1 first-place vote, sitting at number 7. They're number 7 in this poll. They're number 7 in the coaches poll as well. I think people are sleeping on the Ducks. All Oregon did was do something that is similar to what Ohio State did coming into the season. It's taking a roster that's really loaded on both sides of the ball and adding impact transfers. Dylan Thieneman at safety, one of the best players in the portal. Mekhi Hughes at running back. Isaiah World at left tackle. Bear Alexander at defensive tackle, as long as they can get the most out of him. I think all Oregon did was take a really, really good roster loaded up on great high school talent and augment it with great portal pieces. That's a recipe to be a national championship contender.
I mean, the SEC, you look, 10 teams in the preseason top 25. That's close to a record, if not already. I know the Big Ten has won back-to-back national championships, but that just gives more fuel to the fire in the SEC. You see there, I mean, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, those are the top 3 elites. But I think this is the year the SEC will put 4 teams in the playoff. And Richards mentioned, to the kind of middle tier, to the 3rd tier of the SEC, that's where the SEC is likely better than these other Power 4 leagues. Oklahoma is a team that I think right now at number 18 is way too low. I mean, based on what the Sooners did this offseason, getting John Mateer from Washington State, signed Jade Knott from Cal, 1,200-yard rusher 2 years ago. Oklahoma's a team in that mid-SEC range that really has a shot to jump from mid-tier to the elites, and that's why the SEC, I think, right now is the best conference in this preseason AP Top 25.
Ooh, the debate. Danny, it's just happening. Are you excited for this? I'm coming right to you on this next question. By the way, Brad, 10 is the most ever in a preseason poll. Last year, the SEC got 9. You just heard Brad, Danny, 4 teams he expects the SEC to get in the playoff this year. How do you feel about that?
I would have to push back a little bit. No one sells hope and optimism like the SEC in the offseason. Nobody does the offseason propaganda like Greg Sankey, pumping out the info and getting you hyped up. John Mateer may be really good, but he still hasn't played at the Power 4 level. He was great at the Group of 5 level, and everything you're hearing with his offensive coordinator has been good, but that is an optimistic take. Florida, DJ Lagway, is supposed to be good if he's healthy. We haven't even seen him play much for the Florida Gators because he's been banged up so much. Tennessee is a top 25 team, but they're without Nico. If they miss on the quarterback, they could be a 7-5 team. So I think you've got to look at the Big Ten as well, who, by the way, the metric we used to use was, who won the national championship? But it's interesting how that narrative changes now that the Big Ten's won back-to-back titles, how all of a sudden they want to talk about the depth of the league, when I would also contend that a lot of the teams that are in the middle of the Big Ten could be significantly better too. USC comes to mind. They've kind of been hovering under the radar. It was a down year for Lincoln Riley, but I would expect them to be back in the mix. Nebraska, another year of Dylan Raiola. I think they're going to be a tough route. And how about Indiana and Illinois? Two teams that over-exceeded last year. They're not going anywhere either. And Iowa finally has a quarterback that actually won 2 national championships and was a player of the year at the FCS level. So I think the Big Ten is getting a little bit disrespected here from the middle of the pack. Don't get me started on the bottom of the pack, because I think that's a tough argument for the Big Ten to make. So I think as far as depth goes, yes, the SEC is slightly better, but I don't think the Big Ten is lagging that far behind at all.
Yeah, the Big Ten's not lagging far behind, but if you look early in the season, we're going to get some showcase games, SEC versus Big Ten. You've got Texas preseason number 1 against number 2 Ohio State week 1. Couple weeks after that, Oklahoma, Michigan. Now, Michigan's a team that I think all of us agrees probably in that 4th or 5th, maybe elite tier of the Big Ten. Oklahoma's at the bottom. You see they're number 18, 7th or 8th in the SEC. If Oklahoma does beat Michigan in September, I think that shows early, at least in the season's first month, that in 2025, the SEC is just a bit ahead of the Big Ten, but they got to show up in the playoff.
We are going to find out soon enough, gentlemen. Great to see you as we break down the first preseason AP Top 25 poll here on CBS Sports HQ. You hear that? Oh, it's amazing. It returns August 30th. The best sound ever. Big Time returns. The Big Ten on CBS. There's nothing like it. 3:30 Eastern Time, August the 30th.